Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another beautiful video on this beautiful channel. It's a beautiful day. How you guys and girls doing? I just want to start off by apologizing. I'm a little slow and a little allergic to pollen and stuff, so I'm really all over the place today. But I'll try to make this video as good and concise as possible. So let's just get started. So this is a continuation of the last video, the output to file, but today we're doing input from file. So let me just tell you quickly that output to file is easy, because the computer takes everything it has, everything you throw into the stream, converts it to text, and prints it out to the file. So everything in the file becomes text. So all the numbers you had, all the structure you had, it's gone. Because once it's text, it's really hard to know what was text and what is numbers, basically values. So you can't just read everything in and expect it to all fall into place again. So it's basically the concept of disassembling something is easy, but assembling it back is harder. So that's basically what this is. So I'm going to show you some ways to read from the file. So basically one line at a time, only text, one character at a time, and then we're going to check for things in those characters. And then finally an example of structure. So you're going to need structure when you're saving stuff. And we'll get to that as we go on. So let's just start off. Create your little main. Include fstream and string, because we need that. Now I'm going to show you the old style character, const char file name. So this is a nice way of creating a C style character or C style string. Basically a string is just that you can't really change it in the same way, and it's a little more optimized basically, but yeah, string, you can use string if you want to, but this is a way to write a string. So the file name is going to be myfile.txt. There we go, if I can spell. Alright, so let me just show you that file. If we go into, whoops, that's my other file. Here's my file that we created in the last example. Now I created some stuff in here just for play. Let's write this is a sentence. Hello from another line. And then we'll have a number 234, something like that, and then we'll save that. So there are different lines here. Now before we start, let me just tell you something. Input from a file is kind of, there's a lot of things to remember. One thing is there will, once you open this file in the computer, there will be a pointer, all right, that you can't see. It's gonna be iterating through here. It's gonna be going through here. And once you read something from here, it's gonna move, and it's gonna stay there until you close the file, or something else if you restart it. But it's gonna stay there. So imagine if I read this character, I'll be like, okay, I read one character at a time, THIS. So if I stop here, read 4 characters, I'm gonna be at a white space character, and then I say I want to read the whole line, then you're gonna be at a new line character. You're gonna read, so the pointer is gonna be here where this blinking thing is. And then we'll say we read another line. Okay, gonna read this. The pointer is gonna be here. Read one character. Your pointer is gonna be here. And anything you read after you have read something, it's gonna stay there. So you have to remember, you don't always start up from the beginning once you have done a read call. And I'll explain this to you. And there's characters in here that you're not aware of probably, because like the white space character, it counts as a character. The new line character here that created this new line counts as a character. It's in here. It's just that this program, this text editor notepad, shows me that character as a new line, and it puts another line here. If I take that away, there is no more new line character. So just remember these things under the hood that are happening that you might not be aware of. But let's just start. So myfile.txt. Now it's the same way. It's a stream, so it's the same way to open it as the output stream. So let's create a std if stream. Now it's if stream, not off stream. This is in file stream. In file. And we can open it, my file right here, or we can open it in a new line. It doesn't really matter. So in the last video I opened it in a new line. Let me just open it here. File name in this one. So now we technically opened it. Alright, well, we don't know. And it's not the same thing as in the output stream here. It does not create this file if it does not exist. It will give you an error. So it's not like the output which creates one for you if it doesn't exist. So here you'll have an error if this does not exist. So you want to make sure it does, and you want to have checks for that. So if infile.isOpen, then we'll do stuff. Else we'll say std cout could not open file, and then you probably want to give it the file name so the user knows what went wrong. So this is a good error message right here. And then you want to do infile.close. Never forget that. Do not forget to close file. So basically now we have opened our file here. Alright, this is the same thing as writing infile.open file name. Alright, that's the same thing as writing that. And I'm just gonna remove this so you don't get confused. But this is the same thing. This is just in the constructor, so it's a little easier. Constructor is something we'll get to later. Don't freak out. Don't worry. It's just something you can do quickly to open it. Nevertheless, we open the file. So let's just make a simple check in here. File is open, and then give it a new line right there, and then we'll run this program. File is open. All right, so if I were to remove this .txt and run this, could not open file, my file. Okay, so remember one thing is that once you have a file, remember what extension it has. It doesn't matter what extension it has, just that you make sure you write it in this .txt and everything. You write it in here. All right, it doesn't matter. I can change this extension to something else, .pbg, aag, whatever, and as long as you write it here, it will be open. But this text has to match the full path of that file. All right. If you have the file somewhere else, for example, let me show you that as well. Let's make a new folder in here. New folder, files. Let's just call it files. We'll put my file in there, and we'll try to run this now. myfile.txt. It'll be like, what? There is no file, myfile.txt. What the hell? If you want to access it, you have to write files, this thingy, myfile.txt, and then we will reach it. You see how that works? So I'll leave that there actually for you guys to, or oh no, you know what? Since the old one doesn't, I'm sorry, the old one doesn't have, I just remembered that functionality, so we'll just, no. Where is that? There we go. So I'll keep it here. But you could do that. So I showed you an example. Hopefully you'll know. Now, one thing I want to show you. Let's start off by reading one line at a time. Now remember, this is just text. It doesn't matter if it's a number or whatever, any character. It's just text in this file. The computer does not know it as anything else than text. So we can make a std string line. And this is to read one line at a time. Now, if I were to do this, remember, this works just as cin, basically like cin. It's the same stream type of thing. So remember, we used to do cin something something into a variable from the keyboard. Well, you can do the same thing, just like in the output. Just remember, your arrow thingies should be to the right for input and to the left for output. So this is input, so they're to the right. We'll get something into line, and then we will std cout line, new line, and then we'll look at this. So this, it just got this. You're like, what? But if you remember the tutorial from cin, you'll remember that it cannot take a whole line at a time. This operator, this arrow operator, input operator, I think it's called the input stream operator, something like that. But anyway, it does not. It looks at white spaces, basically spaces, and a new line characters as end of stream, right? So it's going to be like, okay, this white space, okay, I'll end my input stream thingy, and the pointer will be here. Now we don't want that. We want the whole sentence, right? We want the whole sentence, and for that, remember, if you remember correctly, there is another thing that we can use, another function. It's called std_getLine. Remember that? But before we use std_sin here, something to get it from the keyboard. Now cin is for the keyboard. We created our own stream here in file, so we'll just say in file. This says we want to get a line from whatever is open in file, and we have a file open in here, right? So whatever this is associated to, we want to get a line from that, and we want to put it into line. So now if I print out line, we'll get the whole sentence up until the new line character, because get line works up until the new line character. And so we got one line. So now you're like, okay, that's great, but how do we know how many lines there are? You could have a bunch of lines in here and you don't know. You want this to be dynamic. You want it to read all the lines there are and then print them out to me and then end without having to know how many lines there are. So for that, we'll use our trusty while loop, and this might be a little confusing. So while, remember, it can have some kind of a condition in here. While something is true, while 5 greater than 3, while some condition that's true or false. It can use that as well as it can do function calls in here. So basically get line is gonna say, okay, there is a line to get, it will return true, we'll go in here. But as soon as it notices that there is no more lines to get line will fail. So once get line fails, the while loop will fail. And while loop will say, okay, there's nothing else, this doesn't cut it anymore, it's not good anymore, let's jump out of the while loop. So basically this is saying while there is a line to get into this line, keep getting it at the same time as it actually gets the line. So you see it's a kind of a condition and a execution at the same time. Alright, so this might be a little confusing in the beginning to get, but just remember that you can do this. Alright, it's a way to get all the lines in a file and print them out. So if I get the line, if I use the while loop and I print out line, we're gonna probably get all the lines that there were. And remember, this isn't a number in our case, it's still a string, it's a text line. So we got all the lines, we printed out, and we printed out or we ended the program. So that's getting all the lines. Now we want to get all the characters. This still is just for printing out stuff in a file. It doesn't really help you that much, but you can get all the lines in a file like this. Now to get all the characters in the line, remember we would need a character then. Char c equals something, just some empty space character here. Now we want to get a character. So instead of this, we're going to use something called get. Now you haven't seen this before, and you could use in file, while in file c, print out c. Let's try this out. Let's see, I'm kind of unsure about this as well. So okay, so it got all of those in. I'm just gonna remove, that worked. So don't worry about it. So this is basically what we used for our cin, right? But since character, we want to get all the characters, all right? So we're not getting a line, we're getting all the characters. So it will keep getting characters even if it's a new line, even if it's a space character, whatever, it doesn't really matter. So it will get everything in here, everything. And it seems it skipped all the spaces in character. It seems it skipped them. Yeah, it does skip them. Sorry. I just forget all about that. This thing skips all the spaces and new lines. So that's why we got all a humble jumble thingy here. All right. And then you could use infile.get c like that, and we'll print out c. So this should keep all the white spaces and the new lines. See that? And this gives me a good chance to show you why this press any key came directly after 234. Let me show you why that happened. Because, like I said, a new line is also a character that you can get. And there is no new line here. I cannot access the line beneath this, right? So there is no new line character. If I add one, I added a new line character now, and I save this, you can clearly see that the press any key is below the 234 now. That's because there is actually a new line character that can be read in this file. So this file and the text editor, our notepad, actually sees the new line character. We don't see it, but it sees it, and it adds a new line just like that. Okay, and at the bottom here as well. So I'm going to just remove that because that's going to help us in the next tutorial part. So now this is getting one character at a time. All right, this is getting one character at a time. Now what if I wanted to count how many A's there are in all the characters in the whole file? How many A's are there? All right, so then I'll have an integer number of A's equals 0. So we have 0 A's in the beginning, and we just want to print out, instead of printing out every character, we want to use this while loop for just counting all the A's. Number of, now I'm doing this because you might have some kind of a school assignment of this type. Sometimes they ask you to count how many characters there are, specific characters in a file, and this is a way to do that. So you get all the characters and you check if C equals a small a or C equals a capital A, we want to say number of A's plus plus. So every time we encounter a small a or a big A, excuse me, big A, we increment number of A's, which is 0 from the beginning. So if you remember the if statement tutorial, you'll see that you can kind of chain these together. Now, if it's A, this will return true, or if this is true, if one of these is true, it's enough for this to trigger. If we had the AND here, both of these have to be true. So that's basically logic. Just imagine in your head like the English language, right? If this and this is true, then you do this. If this or this is true, you do it. Basic logic, right? So that's why we're using the or here. Another thing I want to tell you is that, I don't know if I mentioned this in the old tutorial, is that if you just have one sentence under here, if you just have one statement, you don't need these angled bracket thingies. Alright, you can have them, doesn't hurt, but if you just have one, you don't need them. But if you have two things, for example, if we had two statements like that, then you would need these brackets, because yeah, it's just a shortcut basically. If you're lazy and only do one thing, you can do it this way. Anyway, so let's run this, and I don't know how many A's I have. I have 3 A's here, it said. So let's go in here, let's count. This is a sentence, 1A, hello from another line, a sentence, another line. Okay, so we have 3 A's. It was correct, so I counted all the A's in this file. Now that's great. There you go. That is one character at a time. Now the hard thing now is something I really have to explain. Please try to stay awake and stick with me here, because this is really important. If you're saving files and loading them, you as a programmer, not the computer, you as a programmer need to remember the structure, the way you saved stuff, and the way you want them to be loaded. Because remember, once you save it to a file, it's gone. It's only text. The computer will not be able to know what you intended to be numbers, values, text, and anything else. Decimal points, anything. It does not remember what you intended. You remember what you intended. And for you to successfully load and save files in a consistent, safe manner, you need to remember where you put what and in what structure you're saving stuff. If you have a database, it's really important that every person you're saving has the same set of data after each other. 5 things. Alright. For example, maybe there's 5 things or 4 things. You need that every person to have 4 things after, so the computer knows, or you can tell the computer where everything is. So let me show you this in a practical example. Structure is really important. So that's basically what I had. So let's say we create a person, Daniel. This is a database for a sick people or a hospital, for example. So we have person Daniel, his age 23, blood type A, whatever A, address some street 23 or 2, whatever, and cat's name is really important, as Bob, as usual. Now we have a person here, right? This is our database. We as programmers decide that each person should have these values associated to them. Now the next person can't just have 2 things. 12. This isn't good, because the computer doesn't know that, okay, person 1 has 5 things, but person 2 has 2 things. That's not good. Alright, it's really hard to kind of code that way. So what you want to do is you want to make sure everything is the same for each person. follows a template basically. So a person cannot have, it can have 5 things and they also have to be ordered in the same way. We can't just mix and match. We can't say some street 12, age 24, age 28, sorry, like that, Bob, and maybe blood type at the bottom. No, the structure has to be the same. So name, age, blood type B. For example, I don't know what my blood type is. I should get that checked out. Some street 12, and then cat's name noob. So see how it's following this template of name, age, blood type, street, cat name. Name, age, blood type, street, cat name. It's the same. So the computer doesn't have to bother with which order everything is in. You take care of that structure. So this file, for example, if you save this file, there was a structure in the saving as well of this file. So when you saved it, you made sure that all the people were saved in the same order after each other, like this. And then there is no new line at the end to signify that noob was the last thing read. So this is a little more complicated. So let's do this. We open our file, and we can obviously read each line of this file and print it out if we just want to print out a text version of the database. But we want to bring in things from the file to the computer in the computers, like in the types, in integers, strings, just characters divided up, so we can change values, add stuff together, all that stuff. All right, so let me go ahead and do this. Let me remove line as well. So what do we have? We had a std string name, we had age, right? Int age. See how I'm using integer now, not as a string. We actually want it to come in as a number. We have also, what else did we have? Name, age, blood type, street, Bob. So std string blood type, std string street, std string cat name. And then I want to add one more number just to show you, because we only have something with one number. So Bob, that's the cat's name, and then maybe we want height as a double, as something with a decimal. All right, so in meters then, 1.75, and I am 1.75. This dude can be a little shorter than me because I should be the tallest. So now we have a decimal point. Now imagine if we said int height here. What would happen when we read this in? Of course it would work. It wouldn't crash because it's not a string of text or anything. It's still a number. But we would cut away the decimal. Both of these would have the height of 1 meter. We don't want that. We want to keep the decimal. So double height 0.0. So these are just starting values. Don't really bother about those. I just always use starting values. Now, a good way to check if you're at the end of the file or not, or it's a semi-good way. There are other ways that you can read about, and I'll probably show you other ways, but this is an easy way. infile.eof. And it's exactly what it looks like. End of file. If in file, end of file, not. This is the not logical operator or whatever it was. If in file is not at the end of itself, if in file is not at the end of the file, remember that pointer I told you about. It's always a pointer, and at some point it will come to the end, and then it will know that I'm at the end of the file. Alright, I have read everything there is to read in this file. So what I'm saying is, while we're not at the end of the file, do something. As soon, if I remove this not thing, while we're at the end of the file, do something. That doesn't make sense. We wanna do something while we're not at the end of the file. All right, so that's very important. Don't forget this not operator here. So this is one thing. While we're not at the end of the file, do something. Now we're gonna, using the structure that we decided as people, as human beings, as a programmer, we decided this structure. We're gonna read in from this file in that structure. So hopefully you can see that once I read, the pointer will keep going down, 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 and I'll read one thing at a time. And I know exactly as a programmer where everything is and where the next person starts and how many things a person has. So I'm gonna do that. So while we're not at the end of the file, I'm gonna get name, name in file. Since we can have more things than one in a name, we can have a surname, and we can have middle names and stuff. So we don't want to use this operator. All right, we don't want to use this because it will end at the first name no matter what. We want to use getLine. So std getLine in file. Oops, in file name. So now we got the whole line name. So let me just try that. Daniel Richards, and I'll have a middle name. Suraj 1337 Sharma. There you go. I have a middle name. I have my little thing here. I can even add characters to that. So there you go. That is our file, and then we're going to get that line. So now we have a name of Daniel, for example. This is gonna, oops, sorry about that. That's gonna be the first thing. What was that even? I think it's The Walking Dead I was watching. Whatever. So we got that, and then we're gonna do age. So now we're gonna use that operator, age, because we know that integer can only be one. We can't have spaces between that. It's not text we're reading in. We're reading a number, an actual number. This should, whatever is written here should be taken as a number. Even though it's text, it should be taken in and put into a number if it works. If it wasn't a number here, I would get a crash. So you have to make sure it is a number here, the next thing you read. And I know this isn't a while loop, and I hope you can see that after we read 5 things, it will restart. But the pointer is going to be here. So it's, once it restarts, it gets this name and this data here. So let's just do this, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. So we get the age, and here's a good point to show you an error that you can get. So I'll show you as we see the input's going to get really weird, and you'll probably understand why. Because remember, this is the same as cin. And remember what happened when we mixed getLine and infile. I just want you to remember that from the old tutorial, if you do. If you don't, I'll show you soon. Blood type. So we got the blood type. Then we want to get the street. Then we want to get the cat name, because this is the order. Remember the order. Order is really important. Structure is really important. In file height. So there you go. There you go. That's one person at a time. And I'm gonna print out each person at a time. Cout name space name new line. I'm just gonna copy this whole thing here. Name, what age, blood type, street, cat name, and then height. New line. I'm gonna add 2 new lines here. New line, just because the next person's data is going to start after this. So I added 2 new lines. Now this should work in theory. So let me just run this. Let's see what errors we get. So we're getting a bunch of errors. It's freaking out, everything. So that's because it's never reaching kind of. Oh wait, let me see. All right, there we go. There's a new line character here is messing things up. So remember, in cin, once you get something, the character after that is saved in the stream for some reason. It's still there. It's a bad thing. It's still there. It's chugging. So the next get line is, remember, get line ends at the new line character, and here a new line character is going to be in the stream just chilling, without it's just hitchhiking. It's there. It's not supposed to be there. The get line character here is going to be a new line, and everything is going to flip out. So what you want to do is every time you mix infile and get line, you need to ignore it. Ignore the last character that was given. Alright, because it will be a new line character in there. So let me just divide this up so you know what's going on. So name, age, infile, we use this operator, so we use ignore because there's a get line after. We use this again, we ignore because there will be a get line after that. And if we run this now, we get Daniel Richards 23A Sum Street Bob 1.65 my name, something, and it reached the end of the file and it quit the program. See how that worked? So if I say age plus 20 here, this will work. If this was a string, it wouldn't work, but it's actually an integer. We actually brought it in, changed it into an integer, and we can use integer thingies, arithmetic on it. So 43, 48. See how that works? So it's actually a number. If I try to do plus 20 on blood type, we're probably going to crash because, see, it didn't even let me, because we can't use plus with something that's a string in that way, because that operator is not defined for that. So that we'll get to later. Sorry, I'm babbling on again. Well, whatever, there you go. So now we actually read in from the file. So imagine you making a game. You have a save file. You know exactly how that save file is structured. You can get the character's name, the character's age, the character's level, the character's experience, the weapons, the armor, everything. And you can change it up. You can do stuff to it, play the game, and then save it again into text in a text file. And then there you go. Then you can load it again later. Now height was a double. I hope you saw that. We got a decimal point. If I change this to an integer and I run the program, we'll get issues as well, because we're trying to read in a double where there is a integer. So you need to check, make sure that whatever you're saving has the same input as output. So if the character's height, if the person's height is a double when you save it, it should be a double when you load it. You understand? So keeps this structure together and you should be fine. Sometimes you can encounter errors if there's an extra new line here and there, but that should not matter in our case. But just remember that if you ever find errors, yeah, like now we had a new line, we got an issue. So make sure at the end of the file, if you're doing this, make sure you don't have any new lines and stuff. Try to be careful with that. Yeah, because then it's gonna see the end of the file is not actually the end of the file yet. Then it'll try to get the line again and it will keep working. So yeah, just make sure everything is structured and good. I hope you stuck with me throughout this video. I know it wasn't the best video in the world, slow, maybe I was babbling on a lot, but thank you nevertheless for all the love, support to this channel. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I'm here for you. If you need any help, please ask me. I might be slow in answering. I'm sorry for that as well. But I'll try my best, because there's a lot of you and only one of me, so I hope you know that. But again, thank you so much for everything. Take care and best of luck with everything. You'll make it big. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next one. All right? Bye-bye.